we like to stay on time, so let's get started. I will read the rules of decorum and procedure as we start. So this meeting will come to order. Welcome to the March 21st regular meeting of Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. My name is Shauna Kitzman and I am the chair of the board. This meeting is being conducted in a virtual format in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act as amended by Public Act number 21-2, which authorizes municipalities to conduct public meetings virtually. Members of the public can view the meeting live on West Hartford Community Television at www.whctv.org and www.youtube/whctv5, numeral 5. This meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing and will be available on the town's website for at least 45 days. Since we're conducting this meeting in a virtual format, there are some special rules and procedures that I need to cover before we begin. First, ask all participants mute your device when you're not speaking. If you wish to be recognized, please raise your hand and I will call on you in the order I see hands raised. If you're participating by audio only or if I do not call on you and the debate is ending, then unmute your phone and let me know so I can recognize you. Second, the main motions will be made by me and no second is necessary. We will proceed immediately to debate. These include motions to adopt, receive, or approve business items. Subsidiary motions still require a second. These include motions to amend. A member must be recognized before making a subsidiary motion, but any member can second a motion just by unmuting their line and saying second. Third, all speakers must make a good faith effort to state the person's name and title at the outset of each occasion that such person participates in the meeting. Fourth, all votes must be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. Fifth, a reminder that if any participant has a problem with connectivity, you should immediately call Helen Rubino-Turco, whose phone number you were provided with earlier. She will let me know and will recess the meeting while the problem is resolved. If it cannot be resolved quickly, we'll ask you to call into the meeting using a phone and participate via audio only. I will now call roll, and will the following members of the board please say present when your name is read. Robin Collins.
Present.
Catherine Eichel.
Present.
Steve Garno.
Present.
Steve Kutcher.
Present.
Tanya Lowe.
Present.
Gus Melita. I believe he's not here. Anna Park.
Present.
And Gregory Scheimer.
Present.
Great. And I would also like to recognize the other public officials and town staff who are present. Please say present when your name is read. Director of Leisure Services, Helen Rubino-Turco.
Present.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of formality, but did it, made it. Okay, so let's get started. I had sent along the January 24th minutes this afternoon. All in favor of adopting our January 24th minutes? Say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Okay. Helen, do I have to ask if anyone objects?
Not if you see that it was unanimous. You can just say passed
Okay.
unanimously.
Okay. The minutes have been passed unanimously. And then we can move on to old business. Helen?
Thank you. We're delighted today to have Ted Goerner from the West Hartford Tree Project is going to be our main topic. But before we turn over to him, I just wanted to bring you up to date on a couple of quick items. Since we last met in January, Leisure Services Spring, Summer, and Summer Camp programs went live for registrations as of February 1st. And the numbers were really great across the board, but after I'm trying to get the number. After 31 minutes, we received more than 3,000 registrations valued at more than $500,000, and it was growing, and it really was very popular. This was the second year in a row where we set an opening at a specific time. It was really well received. We've been able to add some sections to very popular camps, and we're also learning to manage wait lists using our rec desk system. So we are saving quite a bit of money by not printing 35,000 copies or mailing 35,000 to 35,000 households. But we do print a limited run, which are available in all leisure services facilities, libraries, and public schools. We also have saved money on not just the printing, but also obviously the mailing. So this is also a great way for us to stay current online, where we can change our programs, we can update our programs, we can stay current. So it's been a great tool. Haven't heard any complaints about it. The Mayflower property continues to move along. We did hire Tecton to be the architecture firm that's going to lead us through the feasibility study and the community outreach. This is not necessarily the firm that will eventually design the building, but what comes first is about 9 or 10 months of assessing what we've got, asking the community what they'd really like to see, and really engaging the stakeholders as part of that community engagement process. And then coming up with a list of this is what's feasible in a building potentially situated in such a way. And then we would use that information to then ballpark the cost and see whether that's something that we can still afford. And so typically they run a couple of different scenarios. And then we would do an RFP, a request for proposal from architects who would then design it, again, working with our community outreach vehicles. We have almost all of the stakeholder groups have submitted names for their representation, including this body. And we will do one more push for representation from the public at large. So, because we do want to have a well-balanced voices at the table. So we should have that established by the beginning of April, and then we will launch the advisory committee that will meet probably once a month or less, depending on the community outreach, because they would also want to participate in that. So that's going along. We do hope to have this feasibility study wrapped up by Thanksgiving, so that we can stay on task. In terms of our capital improvement updates, those pickleball players out there will be happy to know that we have, Steve is half smiling. We have started to do the renovation of the 4 tennis courts on Cornerstone Drive. This is up behind Cornerstone, near the community gardens. They will become 2 tennis courts and 6 pickleball courts. So there's not a lot, there's street parking there, but on one side of the road, I believe. But we are excited about that. Should be, it's very weather dependent, so I haven't gotten an update as to whether they've actually started this week, but we've done the demo, and we hope to have that wrapped up by, the beginning of the summer, so that it can be used. We have also continued to work with the designer of the new pool and bathhouse at Eisenhower Park. So that's going to be a really big project for me for the next 12 months. It seems that we may try and use the footprint or the foundation of the existing building, but that's probably the only thing that we'll salvage going forward. They've been very responsive to, our input. And I think those are the two main projects that I wanted to touch on. So that concludes my report. If I think of something else, I'll chime in. Are there any questions? Robin?
Just a couple quick ones. With regards to the Mayflower property, is it my understanding that it probably will be knocked down and not renovated? Or don't you know that yet?
We don't know that yet. So that remains to be seen. I suspect that it will be a tear down because of the three, the asbestos, the lead paint, and the PCBs. We also envision, we'd really like to make sure that the size of the gymnasium and the style meets, the vision of the community. So not sure if we can save that, not sure if it's worth saving. So again, these are decisions that will be made as we go through the community outreach and the assessment.
I have one more question. If someone from the public at large, as you put it, were interested in being involved on this committee that's going to talk about what they'd like to see, how would one approach that? Do they contact you? Do they contact the town clerk? How is that happening?
Right. So there will be a formal request that goes out. It has not yet gone out. We have received some letters of interest, but we were waiting to see what the makeup of the existing advisory group was from all the stakeholder groups before we went out, because we want to make sure that we have a broad range.
Mm-hmm.
It is not through the town clerk, it'll be through the town manager's office.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, more to come on that. So back to you, Shauna.
Thank you, Helen. This is Shauna Kidsman speaking, and we will move on to our new business, which is the West Hartford Tree Project, and we welcome guest speaker Ted Goerner. So Ted, take it away.
All right, thank you. Can you guys hear me? Audio's working. Helen, how long, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or just need a ballpark?
I would say 15 to 20 minutes would be great. Thank you, Ted.
Okay. So Helen asked me just to talk about the West Hartford Tree Project, which is in its second year this year. It's basically just a grassroots project to try to help restore and preserve the West Hartford tree canopy. Like a lot of people, my wife and I have noticed over the last 5 or 10 years that the big trees are coming down for a variety of reasons. Drought, floods, storm, invasive insects, invasive plants. People just are worried about big trees. They're cutting them down left and right. And so we've been worried about it for 5 or 10 years, and we just wanted to try to get something going to address the problem. And we realized, of course, it's pretty obvious the advantage of trees is that they regrow. So even though the big trees are coming down, we can always replant. So we decided that basically a good strategy would be to raise a little bit of money, buy a bunch of tree seedlings, order a bunch of tree seedlings from the North Central Conservation District. We had been ordering from them for quite a while, and we knew that their tree seedlings were extremely affordable, about $1 a piece. And when I say seedlings, I'm talking about a bare root seedling, which is a tree that's 1 to 3 years old, 6 to 8 inches tall. It looks like a stick with roots when you get it, but it's alive, it's dormant. So we thought we would raise money through Gofundme. We started last year. We did a Gofundme kind of facilitated through neighbors and friends on Facebook. within 48 hours, we had raised well over $1,000. So we purchased a bunch of tree seedlings last year. And the overall philosophy is, okay, let's give away these tree seedlings to anyone in West Hartford who wants to order one, any resident, any student, to be planted on private property. And then whatever is left over, whatever is not claimed, ask the town if we can plant those trees on town property. And it worked really well last year. We were able to distribute probably, I don't know, 800 trees to residents. We had a distribution day. People just drove up. We gave them out in our front yard. And then we probably had about 400 trees left over. And then Helen was gracious enough to work with Public Works and Parks and Rec to clear, I think, 4 places or provide access to 4 parks. So we planted about 400 trees on town property. Westmore Park, we planted them throughout the forest, and they appear to be doing really well. They're spread far and wide throughout the forest, and every time I go check on them, they seem to be doing fine, but it's kind of hard to keep track of those. We planted about 100 at, not Westmore. Help me out, Helen. What's the name of the park?
Walcott Park.
Yeah, we planted about 100 at Walcott, and those are doing amazing. It's probably about an 80% survival rate, I would say. And those are located near the boardwalk, kind of where the boardwalk and the pond and the school all come together. There's an outdoor classroom there. I would say there's probably 80 little seedlings. Most of them are white spruce. Last year we did all conifers because it was sort of a late start, and the North Central Conservation District mostly just had conifers left over. This year we decided to do the same thing, but we wanted to focus on deciduous trees. So deciduous trees are the ones that drop their leaves in the fall. And there's a lot of advantages to deciduous trees in a suburban environment. They shade in the summertime, and yet when they drop their leaves, they allow sun to come through in the wintertime. They have beautiful fall colors, and we figured that those would be more desirable in a suburban environment, so we focused on those for this year. This year's effort is going well. We raised money initially through Gofundme, and then we've kind of switched over because we applied for a sustainability grant, a matching grant. And so we had to change platforms to Patronicity. Again, the money just kind of poured in quickly. Within 48 hours, we had well over $1,000 in donations. We placed our order, and the effort is, the project is ongoing right now. We have a variety of deciduous trees. We really wanted to offer a wide variety from large trees to small trees. We're working with Eversource sort of hand in hand. There's a arborist from Eversource that came forward and volunteered and helped us plant last year, and he's been extremely helpful. So we wanted to offer large, medium, small trees and shrubs this year. So just going back to last year, here the overall plan was raise money, buy seedlings, give them away on like the 23rd, a Saturday, and then whatever wasn't given away that Saturday went into the ground the very next day. We had a crew of about 10 volunteers, and we went out. It was a rainy, cold day, and we planted about 400 trees, and they're doing great. We're going to do the same thing again this year. The distribution day is going to be on the 23rd, I think, of April. And planting day will be on the 24th. And so far, we've had about maybe 80 people who have requested seedlings. We have quite a few volunteers to help us on distribution day and on planting day. And there's some exciting projects for this upcoming year. John Phillips, who's our tree warden, has asked us if we'd be interested in planting along the new Trout Brook bike path, the new one that hasn't been built yet, which is really exciting. I walked it the other day, going from Fern to Asylum. Again, it hasn't been built yet. It will be built soon. So we will be doing some plantings along there in the fall. So we're gonna, plant some seedlings with Public Works on Brixton Avenue, and we're gonna kind of hold them until the fall. We'll be doing some planting at Spice Bush and maybe a couple of other places, maybe Mooney's Woods near Brayburn Elementary, not really sure yet. But everything is rolling along. We still have a month. I'm waiting to see if the number of orders increases. And I do have a slideshow that I can present really quickly that shows what trees we have available. But I've never presented on Webex before, so I'm assuming I would hit share. Is that right? Hit share.
You should try. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, I'm gonna hit share.
We'll figure it out.
It looks like I have a choice. I'm gonna hit Google Chrome, and then I'm gonna share Google Chrome, and then I'm gonna click on my slideshow. And can you tell me if can you guys see the slideshow?
We can see it. Yeah.
All right, there's some pop-ups that are getting in the way, but so here's the slideshow. I'll try to go through it really quickly. I mean, this could take quite a while, but so I'll try to go through it really quickly. The goal is to protect the West Hartford tree canopy. There are so many advantages to having a tree canopy. Everything from lower cooling costs in the summer, lower heating costs in the winter due to windbreaks, supporting native fauna from insects to birds, stormwater runoff. Native trees absorb a heck of a lot of water from the soil and evaporate it into the air through transpiration. There are just countless advantages to having a healthy suburban tree canopy, cleaner air. The list goes on and on. So I think I already explained basically how it works. We raise money. The money just came in really fast because there's a lot of people who really want to see a healthy tree canopy. The Connecticut Conservation District provides the trees to us. They're focused on native plants for a variety of reasons. So all the tree seedlings that we're offering this year are natives. The varieties are, the two big trees are red oak and American sycamore. Two beautiful, tall shade trees that are fantastic for supporting native wildlife and just providing shade and being spectacular along roadways and along creek beds. The two medium trees are the river birch and the black gum tupelo. And then we have two small trees, so small that they could be planted underneath power lines if need be. The American hornbeam and the dogwood, flowering dogwood. And then we have two shrubs that we're giving away. Three shrubs, actually. The viburnum, the spice bush, and the witch hazel. And I, no pun intended, I need to give a plug to Eversource. They're actually providing a lot of these, not as bare root seedlings, but as plugs. So Julian was a huge help in terms of just, advice and actually helping out with planting, but Eversource has provided some of these as well. This is what the trees are going to look like. They're going to look like a stick with roots, but they are alive. And if they're planted within a week or two after receiving them, then they will grow. And here's the list. And this is how many of each one that we have. Folks are not ordering the big trees as quickly as I thought they would, which is unfortunate. And I'm hoping that picks up. We still have a month to go. I would love to see more orders coming in for the red oak and for the sycamore. The river birch and the black gum tupelo, both of those kind of wet environments. I've noticed today that a lot of the trees we're offering are fine in moist soil. So almost all of these do absolutely fine with what they call wet feet or moist soil. The hornbeam and the flowering dogwood are both classified as small trees, and they can both be planted underneath power lines. And then the last three are shrubs: Allegheny viburnum, witch hazel, and spice bush. If someone wants to come to this slideshow they can go to our Facebook page. It's called the West Hartford Tree Project Facebook page. And this is basically an overview of the whole project. If they want specifics about each variety, they can click on this link and it'll tell them exactly the scientific name, the height, the rate of growth, the fall color, soil preference, sunlight preference, the major advantages and the disadvantages. Basically, this is open to any student, resident, or homeowner in West Hartford, free of charge. The money's already been raised. They've already been purchased. It's going to be, they're going to be distributed on the 23rd, probably from our front yard on Brace Road. And then the planting day will be the very next day on the 24th. That's a volunteer effort. On our Facebook page, we have a volunteer sign-up sheet. And last year we had 10 people, and that was plenty. That was enough people to go to 4 different locations in town on a very wet, rainy day. We had a blast. We planted 400 trees. Hopefully we'll have a few more volunteers this year, but a crew of 10 is actually plenty. And then there's a distinction between native, non-native, and invasives that needs to be made. All of the trees that we're giving away, all the shrubs, are native plants. And the advantage of a native plant is that they're already adapted to this area. They support native insects, pollinators, and birds. A non-native, not necessarily. A non-native plant may not necessarily do any of those things. And then an invasive plant is one that not only doesn't support native wildlife, but it actually causes environmental harm in some way, shape, or form. This is just a list of the many benefits of having an urban canopy: air quality, property values, reduced heating and cooling costs, improved aesthetics, more diverse wildlife habitat, reduced stormwater. Noise reduction is a big one. I actually was talking to some people over along Trout Brook, and they said they notice a huge difference. Once those trees along Trout Brook were cut, they notice a huge difference in traffic noise. Of course, there's the privacy screening benefit and just an overall quality of life. There's all kinds of interesting psychological studies related to a tree canopy. Everything from crime rate to just general overall happiness. They've studied it, and there's a really interesting correlation. If you want to check the sources for any of that, the sources are well documented. I'll go through these slides quickly because these basically just go into details about each tree. This is the red oak, probably the most beneficial tree in terms of benefiting native wildlife. It supports hundreds, if not thousands, of species of native insects and birds. And of course, it has acorns, and the acorns support squirrels, deer, bear, raccoons, lots of things eat the acorns. Now, in a suburban environment, maybe not so much. But the red oak is a fantastic tree. They're beautiful. They're big though, so you wouldn't want to plant these in an inappropriate location. And we have recommendations when you look at these. When you order the trees, when people request the trees, we make sure that they know that these 2 big trees shouldn't be planted under power lines, and they shouldn't be planted within 30 feet of a house. The second big one that we're offering is the American sycamore. Fantastic tree. The biggest tree in Connecticut is a sycamore. It's the Pincho sycamore over in Simsbury. They're spectacular trees, really distinctive white bark. They do well in a wet environment, relatively fast growers. The river birch is a medium-sized tree. You see this all over West Hartford. Very hardy, very easy to grow, really distinctive bark, and it doesn't mind moist soil. Very cool tree. Oops, I accidentally tripped. Sorry about that. I clicked on a video. Maybe darn it. I'm trying to
Ted, you could just hit the tab back to yours. Right.
right.
There you go.
Yeah, there was a pop-up blocking it, so I couldn't see it. Happened again. Here we go. Let's try it. Darn, it keeps going to the video. Okay. Oh, that reminds me, that slide reminds me, there's an amazing website called Notable Trees of Connecticut, or maybe it's Connecticut's Notable Trees. And this website is run by Connecticut College Arboretum and volunteers. And they profile the oldest and the most spectacular specimen trees of a variety of species. And they classify it by town and by species. And in West Hartford, we have over 100 trees that have been classified as notable trees. It's just a side note that's really an interesting website to investigate. Another tree that we're giving away, I love this tree. It's called the Black Gum Tupelo, and it has spectacular fall colors. It's a medium-sized tree. It provides pollen and flowers for a lot of pollinators. In fact, Tupelo honey is a famous song. Tupelo honey is honey that comes from bees that are raised near Tupelo trees down south, and the honey has a magnificent, like, really unusual flavor. But these are beautiful in the fall. They're a medium-sized tree. They're fine in moist soil. The American hornbeam is a good small tree. If you need to plant a tree underneath the power line or in an area where you don't have a whole lot of space, the hornbeam is a good choice. It's also known as ironwood, extremely hard wood, used for things like golf clubs and the handles of tools, traditionally, things that need to be extremely durable. And then now we're getting into the plugs that are provided by Eversource. So the next few trees and shrubs, they're not going to come as bare root seedlings. They're going to come as plugs, which means they come with a little bit of soil packed around the root. And these have been, Eversource has been doing this for a while. They've been doing tree giveaways for a while, and they know what's popular, and they know what they would like to see people plant. So these are being ordered pretty quickly. The pink dogwood is a flowering tree. It's small, and you can plant it underneath power lines and relatively close to houses. Beautiful tree. And now we're getting into the shrubs, and these also are provided by Eversource. So they're plugs. The witch hazel is a fascinating shrub, very fragrant. They support a variety of pollinators. There's a type of moth that feeds almost exclusively on the witch hazel. It's called the owl moth or the owlet moth. There's links to videos about that plant. And then the last shrub, maybe second to the last, is the spice bush. Fragrant shrub. It's kind of a woody shrub. Supports a variety of pollinators, including this particular butterfly here, the spice bush swallowtail. And then the last one is the Allegheny viburnum. So 3 shrubs and I believe 5 or 6 trees. And then the last few slides are basically advice on how to plant bare root seedlings and plugs. Best practices. You really should plant them within a week of receiving them. You don't want a J root, which is when you plant the tree, you definitely don't want that tap root to be curved upwards. It's better to kind of trim the roots and plant it so that the roots are going straight down. There's all kinds of advice like that in here on how to plant them. All of these seedlings, the soil should be kept moist for a year and a half. That's the key for successful growing of these trees. And then the last few slides point out a couple of things that I've learned over the last couple of years. Elizabeth Park has a really amazing arboretum, and they have a website where you can search by tree or by map, and you can figure out, if you have it on your cell phone, if you're standing in front of a tree at Elizabeth Park, you can figure out what kind of tree you're looking at. Or if you want to go to Elizabeth Park and search out a particular species, you can find out where they are at Elizabeth Park before you go. It's really pretty interesting. It's right in our own backyard. I mentioned the Connecticut Notable Tree website, definitely worth checking out. And then, of course, this picture right here is that incredible white oak over on the UConn campus. and probably my favorite proverb about trees. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And I believe that's the end of the slideshow, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Helen?
Thank you, Shauna. And thank you, Ted, for sharing that slideshow and the information about the West Hartford Tree Project.
Sure.
It is part of a larger effort in town that Ted and I are engaging numerous groups, and it's called kind of the West Hartford Tree. We're calling ourselves the Tree Action Group. And actually, Gus Melita from this committee expressed interest in sort of becoming involved with the Tree Action Group and then reporting back to this body about the activities that are related to trees that we're doing in other venues. The main, I think, effort that John Phillips, who's our Director of Public Works and our tree warden, espouses is the right tree, right place. And one of the things that we're working on is to raise funds to conduct a tree canopy study in town, and also to get an idea of the diversity of species, the coverage of species, and then engage our community in some education about, kind of dovetailing on what Ted has introduced, is really exploring an educational program for our residents. And if they attend the seminar about right tree, right place, and about the importance of trees, then they will get a free, like, $100 tree, right? Something that's substantial that could be planted in their yard or in a park. And so this is something that we're sort of working on for next April to launch, because we're trying to get all of our ducks in a row, trying to make sure we have a tree canopy study done, and then we can build from there. But this tree group also includes a representative from the Connecticut Notable Trees, obviously Ted and me and John Phillips and Julian from Eversource, but there's also a couple of retired people. We now have someone who just recently retired from Deep, who was involved with the state parks. So he lives in West Hartford, so we're pulling him in to kind of gain some of his expertise. And this will all be accompanied with signage and educational signage, tree roots, no pun intended, in each park where you can go and see various trees along the path in each park. So we're really excited about this, and really appreciate Ted's time to kick this off with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Thank you.
I just remembered something that I should have mentioned. One of the parks that we planted at last year was Spice Bush, and we planted, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 trees along one of the trails. And I wasn't too optimistic that they would do well, because I know Spice Bush floods from time to time, and those little guys would have a lot of competition from all the other plants. I was really surprised to see how well they did. Those little seedlings, most of them are still alive. And this Saturday, if anyone is interested, please help me spread the word. But there's actually 2 invasive plant cleanup days at Spice Bush Swamp. One of them is this Saturday, and it's a public event. Anyone who wants to come out and help us keep some of these invasive plants at bay is welcome to join us from 9 to 12 at Spice Bush Swamp Park. And then I believe there's another one in April.
Yes, this is Helen. The second one in April is, I think, on the 22nd, but I can double check that. And it's related to Earth Day, and it'll also be there. Doug Jackson is taking the lead with that one.
Steve Garneau?
I have the good fortune to know Ted very, very well. And I know this is a passion of Ted's Ted, you mentioned something once when you were talking about trees, and one of the charges of this group is equality and making sure that different parks and making sure different sections of our town are equal. Do you mind sharing what you shared with us about the types of trees
Yeah,
in the section of town, particularly the southeast section? So that would be
yeah,
Beachland
yeah,
Park, that would be
yeah.
Kennedy Park. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I totally forgot. So we were thinking maybe next year, rather than raising money from private individuals, we might apply for there's 3 or 4 state grants. There's a lot of money available from the state for urban forestry. And one of the grants has to do with environmental justice and tree equity. So tree equity, a term I'd never heard until about maybe a month ago. And I went to a help session where the state was telling people how to apply for these grants. And the presenter was sharing a website called treeequity.com. I actually have it. I can share again. And West Hartford is perfect for one of these grants. And it's possible, that I think the town might apply for one of these grants.
We did apply for it. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's almost like tailor made for West Hartford, because the purpose of this grant is to help towns and private groups to kind of level the playing field, because a tree canopy, there may not be a cause and effect link, but there's definitely a correlation between sections of town that have a lot of trees and other socioeconomic factors. It's just amazing, the correlation. I'm not saying it's a cause and effect, but there is a website that I can share. I'll go back, if it's okay, I'll go back and share that. I have the link up. Should I show that or not? It's pretty interesting.
It is interesting. We're trying to keep our meeting to 1 hour, and we have about 15 minutes left. I want to make sure that we cover everything. But the tree equity score is something that we have been following, as well as it kind of dovetails too with the 10-minute walk campaign that we were talking about last year and the year before, where people should live in an urban and suburban neighborhood should live a 10-minute walk from a public park. So again, we're trying to tie all of these in together and really focus our education program on in those neighborhoods.
Oh, Kate, you had a question?
Yes, hi, thank you. Kate Eichel speaking. I think that's great. I mean, the tree equity issue and the tree canopy in certain parts of town obviously needs more support than others. For this year, I did just go online and put a request in. If we want to notify folks in that part of town, how long do they have? I think you said April's distribution, like as soon as possible. And also, could nonprofits who have property apply to get requests for seedlings too, to support tree canopy in certain areas?
Yeah, definitely. So the way to request is to get on our Facebook page. There's a Google form, and anyone in West Hartford, whether you're a resident or a student or a homeowner, you kind of need to be the property owner, or have permission to plant there. Nonprofits, absolutely. So it's a Google form, and what's today? The 21st. You have until April. You have about a month, April 21st. Anything that's not claimed by the 21st, we're gonna try to find town property to plant it on. So you have about a month. And the Facebook page is called the West Hartford Tree Project.
Yeah, I dropped it in the chat for anyone who wants to check it out, and I will definitely be ordering some trees. I love this concept and appreciate everyone's initiative. I think this is really wonderful. Okay, thank you so much, Ted, for your time and initiative. I think it's really great and needed. Okay, so we can move on to new business. Nope, we already did new business. Report from Friends of West Hartford Parks. Helen,
yeah.
yes.
I had one other item under new business that I didn't put on the agenda. If
Okay.
I can also go after, if Steve wants to give his report first. Steve, do you care?
I don't, and I don't have a lot to report, frankly. So we're actually meeting on Wednesday night. So my report is hasn't aged from last time, since we haven't met yet since then.
Very good. I know I'm going to be meeting with some members of the Friends of West Hartford Parks to discuss our town website and some upgrades that we're doing to our parks pages, as well as educating them on the capital improvement plan process. You know, how you go about doing a capital project, how the town goes about it, how we secure the funding. But the West Hartford Tree Project and the Friends of West Hartford Parks can now work together because we have this nonprofit vehicle for any potential project that might benefit our parks. So it's very nice to have a lot of energy kind of coming up about our parks. The one thing I did want to let everyone know is that a draft of an ordinance change is going to be considered by the Community Planning and CP, Community Planning and Economic Development Subcommittee of the Town Council on Wednesday. And it's an ordinance that is relating to adult use of cannabis and smoking in parks. And we have not to date had an ordinance prohibiting smoking or vaping or other things in our public parks, but it is being introduced in conjunction with some other, an ordinance establishing the ability for a place of business to produce or dispense cannabis as part of a state law, change in the state law. So this will be discussed on Wednesday morning, but the interesting part for me, well, is two parts. One is from the park side, from the Parks and Recreation side, we have ordinances against, that prohibit destroying or misusing or injuring, property, trees, shrubs. We have an ordinance that part of this ordinance prohibits disturbing wildlife, littering, taking a dog into a park or playground except on a leash, discharging or having firearms or fireworks, alcohol, driving in a park, on park land, shooting arrows in a park, but there was nothing about smoking. And I think part of, the side effect of the pandemic is that people have been more and more in our parks and realizing just the wonderful benefits of fresh air. And so hand in hand with allowing these businesses, there's also some restrictions that are coming in. So I just wanted to let you know that that was coming up. It's not under our purview, but it is under the Community Planning and Economic Development Subcommittee. I believe that this would come before the town council at some point to amend the town ordinance. I just wanted you to be aware.
Thank you, Helen. I guess I had one question, kind of going back one conversation, but is there any opportunity for the Friends of West Hartford Parks or the tree group to have a table or a booth at Celebrate West Hartford?
Yes, we have, the tree group has also discussed that. And I know that I don't want to speak for Steve, but I do know that the Friends of West Hartford Parks has also discussed that. So I believe that we'll be trying to collaborate on having a booth there.
We are absolutely interested.
Yeah, seems like a good venue to elevate public's awareness. Okay, that was all.
What, can you
Um,
tell me what the date is for Celebrate West Hartford?
Certainly, it's June 11th and 12th.
Thank you. We're a definite possibility.
Great. Are there any other comments or questions? Helen, I have a question. It's not necessarily related to us, but is Rick Ledwith the town manager or acting?
Rick Ledwith is the acting town manager. And I hope that he's town manager forever. He's wonderful. But I don't know what how long acting goes until they realize that they have a wonderful candidate in their current acting town manager. I also wanted to mention that we can go in person for this next meeting, which will be in May. So I just wanted to put that out there and have you, Shauna, make some, discuss that.
Yeah, I believe we had talked about possibly visiting Kennedy Park because we hadn't been there in a while, and I know there are some more robust planning and improvements that will take place there. So I think that might be next rotation, but also hearing about the trees, it might be fun to do a little walking tour of some trees. So I can put out to the committee and see what people prefer.
Thank you.
Great. So with that said, our next meeting is May 16th at 5:30. And yeah, oh, Helen, yes.
I'm sorry, I did want to, I'm sorry for interrupting. We will be working on a proclamation for April to kind of celebrate the Arbor Day, Earth Day, the tree project, the notable trees, all these, and our partnerships with the Friends of West Hartford Parks, the West Hartford Garden Club. So I just wanted to let you know we are working on a proclamation for that.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think with that, we've covered our agenda. So if there are no further comments or questions, we can adjourn. Do I need a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. Robin
I will
Collins.
second.
Okay. Yep. And with that, we are go enjoy your evening. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks again.